Picture this. You're scrolling through your phone at 2 a.m., unable to sleep. The bills are piling up, your relationship is hanging by a thread, and that diagnosis you received last week keeps echoing in your mind. The world feels like it's crumbling around you, and you're desperately searching for something, anything, that feels solid. What if I told you that over 3,000 years ago, someone felt exactly what you're feeling right now? And what if I told you they discovered a truth so powerful, so unshakable, that it's been carrying people through their darkest moments ever since? I'm talking about Psalm 46. And friends, this isn't just another Bible study. This is a lifeline. This is your invitation to discover why millions of people throughout history have clung to these words when everything else failed them. You see, we live in a world obsessed with building security. We chase bigger bank accounts, stronger relationships, better health, more stable careers. But what happens when all of that gets stripped away? What happens when the very foundations we've built our lives on start to crack? Psalm 46 has an answer, and it's not the answer you might expect. Let's start with verse 1, and I want you to really hear this. God is our refuge and strength, a very present help in trouble. Now I know what some of you might be thinking. That's nice, but you don't know my situation. And you're right, I don't. But here's what I do know. Whoever wrote these words knew exactly what it felt like to have their world turned upside down. Let me tell you about Sarah. She's a 34-year-old mother of two who lost her job, her husband, and her home all within 6 months. She told me that during her darkest moment, sitting in her car in a parking lot with her kids asleep in the back seat, she whispered these words, "God, if you're really my refuge, I need you to prove it right now." That was 3 years ago. Today, Sarah runs a non-profit helping other families in crisis. The Hebrew word for refuge here isn't just about hiding. It's about a fortress, a place of strategic advantage. When ancient armies retreated to a fortress, they weren't giving up. They were positioning themselves for victory. But notice it doesn't stop there. He's not just our hiding place, he's our strength. The same word used to describe the power that holds the universe together. When you feel weakest, when you can't take another step, that's when his strength flows into you like electricity through a wire. And here's the part that gives me chills every time. He's a very present help. Not was, not will be, is. Right now, as you're listening to this, he's present. Think about that for a moment. The same God who spoke galaxies into existence is sitting with you in your living room, your car, your hospital room. He's not distant. He's not busy. He's present. Now verse 2 hits different. Therefore we will not fear, though the earth be removed, and though the mountains be carried into the midst of the sea. This isn't positive thinking, friends. This is warfare. This is a declaration of war against fear itself. The psalmist paints the most terrifying picture imaginable. The very ground beneath your feet disappearing, mountains crumbling into the ocean. In ancient times, mountains represented permanence, stability, the things you could count on. Imagine if the Rocky Mountains just disappeared. That's the level of chaos we're talking about. But here's what blows my mind. In the face of absolute chaos, the psalmist says, "We will not fear." Not, we might not fear, or we hope not to fear. We will not fear. I met a man named David, not the king, just a regular guy from Ohio, who was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer at 42. He had 3 kids and a mortgage. When I asked him how he kept going, he said, "I realized that if God could handle mountains falling into the sea, he could probably handle my cancer." David's in remission now, but he told me something profound. The cancer didn't kill me, but it almost did something worse. It almost made me forget who God was. Psalm 46 reminded me that my circumstances don't define God's power. God's power defines my circumstances. Verse 3 continues, "Though its waters roar and be troubled, though the mountains shake with its swelling." The imagery here is chaos in its purest form. Roaring waters represent those overwhelming moments when problems come at you like a tsunami. One thing after another after another. The mountains shaking? That's when everything you thought was solid proves to be temporary. But here's the secret. The psalmist isn't saying the chaos won't come. He's saying that when it does come, we have a choice. We can focus on the mountains shaking, or we can focus on the mountain mover. Then, something beautiful happens in verse 4. There is a river whose streams shall make glad the city of God, the holy place of the tabernacle of the Most High. Wait, hold up. We just went from chaos and destruction to a peaceful river. That's not an accident. That's the point. While the world rages with storms, there's a river flowing through the city of God. This isn't just pretty poetry. This is a life-changing promise. In the midst of your storm, there's a river of peace available to you. I love how the psalmist describes this river. It doesn't say it makes the city of God survive or endure. It makes it glad. Joy in the middle of chaos. Peace in the middle of turmoil. Not because the problems disappeared, but because the river is flowing. Jesus talked about this river when he said, "Whoever believes in me, rivers of living water will flow from within them." This isn't just about going to church or reading your Bible, though those are important. This is about accessing a supernatural source of peace that doesn't depend on your circumstances. Let me tell you about Maria. She's been caring for her mother with Alzheimer's for 5 years. Some days, her mum doesn't recognize her. Some days, Maria breaks down crying in the shower. But she told me something that I'll never forget. I've learned that peace isn't the absence of problems. Peace is the presence of God in the middle of problems. Verse 5 makes this even clearer. God is in the midst of her. She shall not be moved. God shall help her just at the break of dawn. In the midst of her. Not around her. Not near her. Not watching her from a distance. In the midst. Right in the center of whatever you're going through. And that phrase, just at the break of dawn, that's God's timing. Right when the night feels longest, right when you think you can't hold on anymore, that's when His help comes. Not a moment too late, not a moment too early, right on time. I think about the night before my father passed away. I was 16, sitting in that hospital room, watching him struggle to breathe. The night felt like it would never end. But as dawn broke through those hospital windows, something shifted. Not my circumstances. My father still passed away that afternoon. But something in my heart shifted. A peace that didn't make sense. A strength I didn't have before. That's the river. That's the dawn. That's God in the midst. Now the psalm takes another turn in verses 6, 7. The nations raged. The kingdoms were moved. He uttered his voice. The earth melted. The Lord of hosts is with us. The God of Jacob is our refuge. This is where it gets really good. The psalmist zooms out from personal struggles to global chaos. Nations raging, kingdoms falling, everything in upheaval. Sound familiar? Turn on the news for 5 minutes, and you'll see nations raging. Political chaos, economic uncertainty, social unrest. It's easy to feel helpless, like you're just a tiny person caught up in forces beyond your control. But then, He uttered His voice, the earth melted. One word from God, and all the chaos stops. All the rage, all the striving, all the noise, silenced by His voice. The same voice that spoke the universe into existence can speak peace into your situation. I love the title used here, the Lord of Hosts. That's not just a fancy church word. Hosts means armies, the Lord of armies, the commander of heaven's forces. When you feel outnumbered, when you feel outgunned, when you feel like you're fighting battles you can't win, remember, you're not fighting alone. And then there's that beautiful phrase, the God of Jacob is our refuge. Why Jacob? Because Jacob was a mess. Jacob was a deceiver, a manipulator, a man who spent most of his life running from his problems. But God didn't give up on Jacob. He wrestled with him, changed his name, and made him the father of the 12 tribes of Israel. If God can be the refuge of Jacob, he can be your refuge too. No matter what you've done, no matter how far you've fallen, no matter how complicated your story is, he's still your refuge. Verses 8, 9 paint an incredible picture. Come, behold the works of the Lord, who has made desolations in the earth. He makes wars to cease to the end of the earth. He breaks the bow and cuts the spear in two. He burns the chariot in the fire. Come, behold. This is an invitation. God is saying, don't just take my word for it. Come see what I can do. The imagery here is powerful. God doesn't just pause conflicts. He ends them. He doesn't just negotiate peace. He dismantles the weapons of war. Bows broken, spears cut in two, chariots burned. But here's what I want you to understand. This isn't just about global peace, though that's part of it. This is about the wars in your heart, the battles in your mind, the conflicts in your relationships. What are the weapons being used against you? Maybe it's the bow of comparison, constantly measuring yourself against others. Maybe it's the spear of regret, stabbing you with guilt about past mistakes. Maybe it's the chariot of control, your desperate attempt to manage every detail of your life. God wants to break those weapons. He wants to end those wars, but he can't do it without your permission. Then comes verse 10, and this might be the most important verse in the entire psalm. Be still, and know that I am God. I will be exalted among the nations. I will be exalted in the earth. In our culture of constant motion, constant noise, constant activity, this command feels almost foreign. Be still, but I have deadlines. I have responsibilities. I have problems to solve. But the Hebrew word here means let go. Stop striving. Stop trying to control everything. Stop acting like you're the one holding the universe together. I remember talking to a CEO who was having a nervous breakdown. He was working 80-hour weeks, barely sleeping, constantly stressed. I asked him what would happen if he stopped for just one day. He said, everything would fall apart. I said, what if everything fell apart and you discovered that God was still in control? That conversation changed his life. He learned to build rhythms of stillness into his week. Not because he became lazy or irresponsible, but because he realized that his identity wasn't tied to his productivity. Know that I am God. This isn't just intellectual knowledge. This is experiential knowledge. This is the kind of knowing that comes from relationship, from trust, from surrendering control. When you're still, when you stop trying to fix everything, when you let go of the illusion of control, that's when you can hear his voice. That's when you can experience his peace. That's when you can receive his strength. The psalm ends where it began, with a promise. The Lord of hosts is with us. The God of Jacob is our refuge. This isn't just a nice conclusion. This is a declaration. This is the truth that everything else is built on. You know what I love about this ending? It's not conditional. It says he is with us. He is our refuge. Present tense, current reality. So here's my question for you. What would change in your life if you really believed this? What would change if you woke up tomorrow morning absolutely convinced that the commander of heaven's armies was on your side? What would change if you faced your biggest fear, knowing that the God of Jacob was your refuge? I think about my friend Jennifer, who was terrified of being alone after her divorce. She told me, I realized I wasn't actually alone. I had been living with the most faithful companion in the universe, and I just didn't realize it. Or my friend Marcus, who lost his business during the pandemic. He said, I thought my identity was my business. When I lost the business, I discovered my identity was something much bigger. These aren't just nice stories. These are real people who discovered that Psalm 46 isn't just poetry, it's reality. So here's where we are. You started this journey maybe feeling overwhelmed, maybe feeling scared, maybe feeling alone. But Psalm 46 offers you a choice. You can continue building your life on shifting sand, on circumstances, on other people, on things you can't control. Or you can build your life on the unshakable foundation of God's character. The storms will still come, the mountains will still shake, the nations will still rage. But you can be still. You can know that He is God. You can live from the refuge of His presence. The question isn't whether life will be hard. The question is, where will you run when it gets hard? Psalm 46 has your answer. It's been the answer for thousands of years, and it's your answer today. The Lord of hosts is with you. The God of Jacob is your refuge. That's not just a Bible verse, that's your reality. That's your foundation, that's your hope. And it's unshakable.